this computer. Hi, and welcome everybody to Joshua 15. We're going to be picking up where we left off from Joshua 14. Joshua's taken over the land, and the tribes of Judah are receiving their heritage and their lots. And so we're going to continue with that story where we left off, and we're going to start with prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, Father. Thank you for all of your word. Please lead, guide, and direct us in your word. Touch our hearts and our minds, Father, and let your words be said, not our own. In Yeshua's name, amen. So we're going to start off with the overall pattern of the book of Joshua. So the overall pattern of the book of Joshua is the 40 years of the wilderness. And the 40 years of the wilderness, and at the end of that 40 years, Moses died. And the manna ceased. But God's will and God's plan for the children of Israel did not cease. He had a plan for all these children of Israel, who are now great nations of this world. The superpower of this world is basically America, is the biggest portion, I would say, and the Christian nations along with America. But America's leading this takeover. Basically, back in Joshua's day, they were taking over the promised land from people that were living there that were not children of Israel. So God was giving them the Abrahamic blessing. He was giving them the promised land. He was giving them control of certain gates. Like he said to Abraham, you will control the gates of your enemies. Well, they're in modern day world, we have a huge gate, and that's the Straits of Hormuz. And what I see when I look at all this war that's going on right now in this prophetic place of Iran, you see this gate. You see the power, the source of all the energy, the chokehold of the energy which runs our entire planet is through the Straits of Hormuz. And you have ships running through the Straits of Hormuz, and they have to be insured, and they run the risk of being blown up from the war. And this is overlaying the book of Revelation. And when you look at the Trumps, you've got a Trump that says a third of the ships are going to be sunk. And that's Trump number 2. And that goes also along with Tyre. This great city of Tyre that's going to catch on fire and be thrown into the sea. And all her power goes into the sea. So when you look at it from that perspective, and you see that basically the takeover of Tyre is the modern day is the modern day Exodus that we're going through. And we have been going through this in the last 40 years. And our country, our leaders of our country about 40 years ago gave in to the UN, gave in to the New World Order, and said that we're just going to do what they want. But now we have a president that's doing the opposite of what George Bush did in 1991. And so we come back to Joshua and this whole great journey of this last 40 years. And we come to today, and we're looking around at the world, and we see that we're at war with Iran. But is Iran really the target? No. The real target is London, and the chokehold of energy that could basically controls the whole world out of London. It's connected to Iran. Iran is like a proxy state for them. But what it always was going to come down to was the control of the Straits of Hormuz, because that's where the energy is traveling through, and you control that, you control the energy, you control the world. And God promised that his people who are called by his name would control the gates of their enemies. And that is a gate basically controlled by our enemy, which is it's a little confusing to say London, but if you look at who the bankers are in London, we're not talking about the people of London or the people of Great Britain. We're talking about the bankers, just like Washington, D.C. is not a state in the United States. That London is the same type of city that's being controlled by a few people. And so this war that we're at right now, when it comes to a close, we may see a reassignment of power. Back then, that was land, and that was cities, and that was control. So if you go back to chapter Joshua 14 here, I have verse 15 pulled up. And the name of Hebron before was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest from war. So when this Iran war is over, and really what the real target is London. It's not really Iran, because London controls the Straits of Hormuz. London controls the energy. And who in London is doing this? It's the bankers. It's a merchantmen. The Bible mentions the merchant men. And who are these merchantmen? If you go, they're connected directly to Tyre. So here in Zechariah 9, you have Tyre. If you go to Isaiah 23, which is a burden of Tyre, and you go to verse 3, it says, by great waters, the seed of Sihor, the harvest of the river is her revenue. So what's going on in the Straits of Hormuz? That the harvest of that river is the revenue for Tyre, not the revenue for America. It's revenue for Tyre. Who is Tyre? It's those globalist bankers that are known by, quote, Lord Rothschild, Lord this, Lord. They call themselves lords. There is no Lord but the Lord God in heaven. But they're using that name and assigning themselves glory and power. And God is going to take it from Tyre. This prophecy says she is going to go down. And in the very next verse, it says, and in this verse, it says, and she is a mart of nations. And some translations say merchantmen. And that's that same word that's used in Zechariah, the pastor says, is the Kenites, the merchants, the traders of the world. A mart of nations, or the merchandise mart of the world. So if you want to know more, this same word used in the Septuagint, which pastor is always referencing. So I'll go over here to verse 3. The traders. So the word is trader. And let's see, the seed of the traders of the nations are like when a harvest is being gathered. So these are the merchantmen. I think I have it's in verse 8. Who hath taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes? So that word, I'm pretty sure, is the word for Canaan, Canaanites. So I'm going to double check here. Emperors. Well, it's calling them emperors, which is another word that others use for the city of London. And the traffickers, maybe it's this word traffickers. Its merchants are esteemed leaders of the land. Okay. And whose traffickers are the honorable of the earth. There it is. It's the word traffickers. So this word traffickers is Kenites. And if you want to hear Pastor Murray explain that, it's the same word used in Zechariah 14, verse 21. So if you go there and you play Pastor Murray, you see he'll tell you this word Canaanite is the Kenites, and this usage of it, because it's also used in Zechariah 11. And let's see, I'll show you that. Zechariah 11, that these traffickers are going to go down. Let's see, which verse is it? I need to cross-reference it. Bullinger even mentions it, that they are the Kenites. The flock of the slaughter, I think it's verse 4. So we'll see what Bullinger says here. So there it is. In verse 4, thus saith the Lord my God, feed the flock of the slaughter. Bullinger says, Zechariah is to represent a good shepherd and is sent to shepherd the people whose rulers destroyed them. And then if you go down to verse 7, even you, O poor of the flock, this is where Pastor talks about the Septuagint being preferable, the translation. He says these words, when they're translated as one word, are sheep traffickers or Kenites. And it tells you the Septuagint properly translates it Kenites, as it does over here on the right. This is Septuagint, verse 7. So I will shepherd the sheep of the slaughter into the land of the Kenites, and I will take it for myself, 2 rods. So I will shepherd the sheep of the slaughter. The one I called beauty and the other I called allotment or bands. Now, what is going on in Joshua? They're getting their land, their allotment literally from the Kenites. And so how does that translate to today? The Kenites, the merchant traders that control the chokehold of energy through the Straits of Hormuz, have a chokehold of control. And they are the ones that are shepherding the flock, and they don't care about the flock. They hate them. And they are, forgot what it said here, verse 4. They're feeding the flock of the slaughter, whose rulers destroyed them. The rulers of our world today are destroying the people. And God is not going to allow that. He's going to take Tyre down. And that is those people that are pictured by Tyre. So when you go to chapter 15, this is a long chapter. It's 63 verses. We're just going to take it little by little. We may only cover part of it today. But I want to show you that when the land has rest from war, the people are given their inheritance. And this inheritance is the first part of the inheritance west of Jordan. Because when we studied the rest of the chapters, we had Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh get their land east of Jordan. But now we're into the heart of the promised land where Jerusalem is. And the tribe that gets this land is the king tribe, the king line. And so verse 1, then was the lot of the tribe of the children of Judah by their families, even to the border of Edom. The wilderness of Zin, southward, was the uttermost part of the south coast. So I'm going to try to pull up the map here. Let me see if you can see the map. Oh, you can. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to put it to the left here so you can see it. I'm doing Bible study. So we have, pull this over here. So I can show you where this is all bordering. Let's X out of there. So this is the map of the tribal inheritances. You can see in red here that this is the land that Judah inherits. So you can't see it. I'm going to move it over. There we go. You can see it now. See if I can point. I got to point this way. It's like the opposite. So that's Judah right there. Judah in red or pink or whatever color that is. And this chapter basically describes the land, and it starts like at the bottom of the Dead Sea. So if we go to verse, see here. trying to see both the Bible and the map at the same time. Let me just pull it in just a little bit. Verse 2. So verse 1 is the border of Edom. So if you go down here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, down here where it says Tamar, that's where verse 1 is starting. It's starting at this southernmost spot right here. And it's going to start describing the south border, going south and around. And then it's going to describe these towns up here, even to the border. So today, Edom is also Russia of today. So it's interesting that Judah is getting its land even to the border of Edom. So we do have a modern day comparison that Russia is claiming its land in Ukraine, and so maybe that battle that's going on over there will be settled when all of this land stakes are established for the tribe of Israel, right up to the border of Edom. So I'm not sure which way it goes, but we'll see. The wilderness of Zin, again, is down here. I'm going to lean over. And then verse 2, and their south border was from the shore of the Salt Sea, that's the Dead Sea here, from the shore of the Salt Sea, from the bay of that looking south. Verse 3, and it went out to the south side to Mael Akrabim and passed along to Zin and ascended up on the south side to Kadesh Barnea, which is about down here, and passed along to Hezron and went up to Adar. Now, I don't know where those cities are, but I'm guessing it's telling you around this area in the middle, because that is Simeon. And I think because it says it went up to Adar and fetched a compass, meaning it went around in a circle to Karka. And Karka is somewhere up here. I can't remember exactly where, but I think it's what it's describing is it's going around this border here. Now, Simeon hasn't been given this land, so basically they're just going around this whole land here. In verse 4, from thence it passed toward Asmon and went out unto the river of Egypt. So you can't really see it in my map, but there's a river out here where this border is. And that's basically what it's saying, is you just go to that river of Egypt. Now, that's obviously not Egypt like the one way over here, but Egypt controlled the Sinai Peninsula up until this river. That's what it's saying. So if you go to that river, and the goings out of that coast were at the sea, this shall be your south coast. So it's establishing the south side here. And the east border was the Salt Sea, going back to the Dead Sea over here, even unto the end of Jordan. And their border in the north quarter was from the Bay of the Sea at the uttermost part of Jordan. So now we're talking about the tippy top here. Verse 6, and the border went up to Beth Hogla and passed along by the north of Beth Araba, and the border went up to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. So there was a stone there. I guess the son of Reuben. Now Reuben's right here next door, so there's a border there that Judah is basically taking as theirs, because it's west of the Jordan River. And the border went up to Debir, verse 7, from the valley of Achor, and so northward, looking toward Gilgal. Gilgal is right up here, and I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see Gilgal. That is before the going up of Adumim, which is on the south side of the river, and the border passed toward the waters of En Shemesh. Now, En Shemesh is, I think, Beth Shemesh, the house of the sun. And the goings out there were at En Rogel, which En Rogel is here. So they watched where the sun rose on the horizon, just like we learned a couple chapters ago, that they were watching that rising point And when it reached its most northern point, that was called the standstill. So they had a whole city named, it was probably a perfect location to watch the sun where it was rising, because there's certain hills and mountains that you can see perfectly, like Stonehenge, but natural with hills and mountains. And so I'm guessing that's why they called it that. And again, God is giving the tribes of Judah this land. He's giving them the power, the allotment. The land is power. All of these cities have meanings. And so we just don't have the Strait of Hormuz being the only thing that is something of interest, but you have all these other places and locations of power and strength that is all being given to Judah, the king line. And so we're going to keep reading the verse 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom. Now you're talking about Jerusalem here, which is, if I zoom in, there's Jericho. Thought Jerusalem was right about here. It might not be marked on this particular map, but Hinnom is in Jerusalem. It's the Valley of the Dead. It's on the east side of, literally right next to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. It's right in between there. Onto the south side of the Jebusite. So Jerusalem is located south of these Jebusites that were still there. The same is Jerusalem. And the border went to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom, westward. So Jerusalem was west of Hinnom, which is at the end of the valley of the giants, northward. And so Jerusalem was again north of the valley of the giants. So Jerusalem is the place that God loved the most. According to Ezekiel 16, Pastor Murray says that God married this location, if you will. He loved it so much. And it's somewhere in here, not marked on this map, but I think it's right here, south of Jericho. This northern tip of the control of Judah. So Judah's being given a very special place that the giants wanted to control. If you think about that, the crux of the power of the world is right here in Jerusalem. It's being given to Judah. And the border was drawn from the top of the hill, in verse 9, unto the fountain of the water of Nephtoah. And it's interesting that you're marking the fountains and the waters and the view of the sun. And went out to the city of Mount Ekron, and the border was drawn to Baalah, which is Kirjath Jearim. And verse 10, and the border compassed from Baalah westward. So now we're going west on the map, probably way over here. I don't know exactly. To Mount Jearim, which is Kisalon on the north side, and went down to Beth Shemesh. I know Beth Shemesh is right here. So we're going to lean this way. There's Beth Shemesh. It's kind of like the middle of the north town, and passed on to Timnah, which is up here. And so it's just outlining their territory. And verse 11, and the border went out unto the side of Ekron. And where's Ekron? I think that's over here on the coast. Maybe if I zoom in, it'll show it. There it is, Ekron right there. Now, Ekron means torn up by the roots. And it's one of those cities that never was conquered that watches the fall of Tyre. So, and the border was drawn to Shikron and passed out along to Mount Baalah and went out unto Jabneel, and the goings out of the border were at the sea. So it's basically, there's Jabneel right here, and mentioning all these city towns all the way out to the waters here. And the west border, verse 12, was to the great sea, the coast thereof. This is the coast of the children of Judah, round about according to their families. So that's basically just giving you an outline of the cities given to Judah. And the reason why I wanted to go over these kind of boring chapters is because The Apostle Paul mentions that there are 7 tribes that haven't gotten their land at the end here. So you have Judah, and you have the 2.5 tribes on the east, and basically 2.5 tribes on the west, which I believe is Manasseh and Judah, and I believe Ephraim, which might be the blue part here. So we're going to go through these chapters that describe these tribes getting their land, and the Apostle Paul says there's 7 tribes. So I think it's in Acts 19. Is it Acts 19:18 or 18:19? I can't remember. Or 13, Acts 13, 19. 13, 19. Yeah, 13, 19. So this is the Apostle Paul. And so in verse 18 of the Apostle Paul is mentioning this 40 years in the wilderness. It's just the crux of the history of our people. And it's going to happen again, as we're told by the prophet Jeremiah. And about the time of 40 years suffered he their manners in the wilderness. So they had some bad manners. And they had to die over that because of the lack of faith. They couldn't take the promised land. And then Acts 13, verse 19, and when he had destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he divided their land to them by lot. So that is the 7 tribes that are remaining when we get to Joshua 18. This is what the Apostle Paul is talking about. So I wanted to get through the allotment of the land to the point where the Apostle Paul is noting as significant. Because when Ephraim gets their land and Manasseh gets their land, and we just read about Judah getting their land, we basically have 7 left. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you don't count Levi because Levi gets an inheritance from God directly. So it's kind of like when the Lord returns, that's the tribe of Levi pictures God's elect getting their inheritance. But before the Lord returns, the tribes of Israel get their inheritance, like a physical type of inheritance, as we're coming into the millennial promised land, if you will. So going back to Joshua 15 and verse 13, we're going to mention Caleb. Now, Caleb was the other man 40 years ago that believed God and said, we can get into the promised land and we can take it. We have faith. We could take the giants. We can take all of it. Let's go. And him and Joshua were like, yes, let's do it. And then the other 8 ruined it for 8 people, ruined it for an entire generation. They could have walked into the promised land and got their inheritance right then and there. But instead, those 8 people that were the heads of the other tribes of Israel. So you had Caleb and Joshua were Judah, and I think they were both Judah. So verse 13 says, unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, he gave part among the children of Judah. So now Caleb, and we already read about Joshua getting that mountain, Hebron. So I'll show you where that is. That's in the same territory here. It's in the center. See Hebron right there? So Mount Hebron is in this area in the land of Judah, and that's what Joshua got. Now Caleb, he gave part among the children of Judah, according to the commandment of the Lord to Joshua, even the city of Arba, the father of Anak. Anak was the leader of the giants, which city is Hebron. So they're in Hebron as well. Interesting. So Joshua and Caleb get to be neighbors. And Caleb drove thence the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshai, and Ahiman, and Talmai, and the children of Anak. And then verse 15, and he went up thence to the inhabitants of Debir, and the name of Debir before was Kirjath Sephir. Verse 16, and Caleb said, he that smiteth Kirjath Sephir and taketh it, to him I will give Axneth my daughter to wife. Now, Kirjath Sephir is city of the book, which reminds me of learning God's word. And I think it's kind of symbolic of taking the truth of God's word and understanding it. And he who takes hold of that gets the prize of his daughter, which would continue his line in truth and trusting God. So verse 17, and Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it, and he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. Verse 18, and it came to pass, as he came unto him, that she moved him to ask of her father a field. And she lighted off her ass, and Caleb said unto her, what wouldest thou? So this is like God's elect. Again, the women that didn't get allotments, the women didn't get inheritances. But because of his faith, his daughter gets an inheritance of not just land, but land with fountains of waters, and a city called the city of the book. Verse 19, who answered, give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a south land. Give me also springs of water. And he gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. Verse 20, this is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah according to their families. In verse 21, and the uttermost cities of the tribe of the children of Judah toward the coast of Edom southward were, and then it's going to start naming the cities, Kabzeel, Eder, Jagger, and then verse 22, more names, 23, 24, 25, 26, and I'm not going to read all of these names. And verse 32 says all the cities are 29 with their villages. So 29 cities. And in the valley, Eshtael and Zoriah and Ashna. And then we have more names. Verse 36, 14 cities with their villages. So they're getting the inheritance that they could have got 40 years ago. And that daughter probably wasn't even alive at that time. So she wouldn't have gotten the inheritance if they had gone in at that time or had the pick of land. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. And you can also keep continuing reading through here. I think I'm still recording. Yeah, I am. Verse 44, more land. Whoops. And 45, 46. And there in verse 46, we have Ekron again. From Ekron, which is those same cities that are mentioned with Tyre. From Ekron, even unto the sea. So if I go back to the map, where did my map go? There it is. I'm going to zoom out, move it over here. So you can see Ekron is, I'm getting to know where all these cities are. It's interesting. You have Gaza, Ashkelon. Now I can't remember where Ekron is. It's somewhere in here in this area. And Ashdod. So from Ekron even unto the sea, all that lay near Ashdod with their villages. Verse 47, Ashdod with her towns and her villages. And Ashdod means, let's see if I can remember, a stronghold. Ekron means torn up by the roots. And so you have these same cities with her towns and her villages, Gaza with her towns and her villages, onto the river of Egypt. So we're talking all the way down from the left side of the coast. And Tyre would be way up here. But these cities, see, Tyre is way up here at the top. And let's see whose land this is. I don't know which Asher, the tribe of Asher. So Tyre is way up there. But for some reason, these 5 cities way down here in the land of Judah are connected to the destruction of Tyre. Ashdod with her towns and her villages, Gaza with her towns and her villages, onto the river of Egypt and the great sea and the border thereof. So that takes you all the way back down to this end of Judah here. So just to remind you, if you go to Zechariah 9, you see those same cities, 9 verse 5. Ashkelon shall see the fall of Tyre and fear. Gaza shall also see it and be very sorrowful. And Ekron, for her expectation, shall be ashamed. And the king shall perish from Gaza. And Ashkelon shall not be inhabited. And these cities typically weren't really taken over by Joshua, even though they're mentioned here. These were the Philistine cities, never taken over. But they will be when Tyre falls. They will finally be taken over. So you have verse 48, and in the mountains, Shamir and Jatir, and we have more cities and names as you go all the way through here in the wilderness. And then he takes you to the last verse in verse 62, and Nibshan and the city of Salt, and En Gedi, 6 cities with their villages. That would be an interesting thing to research. The city of Salt, Nibshan, because Salt is whenever God judged a city like Sodom and Gomorrah, he poured salt on the land so that it could never be used as land again. So it's interesting. It's called the city of Salt. I don't know where it is located on the map. It says one of the 6 cities of Judah, where in the districts of the Midbar wilderness. Let's see if it shows where it's at in the map here. Nibshan, Atlas. Oh, there it is. So it's right. Let's see here. I did zoom out. I'm trying to lean over here. So Nibshan, the city of Salt. I was wondering if it was close to Sodom and Gomorrah. Oh, there it is. It says city of Salt. A city located near the Dead Sea assigned to the tribe of Judah. So let's see what the Septuagint calls that. I got to go over here. Make that. So that would be verse 62. And okay, so it's got more cities. Ai, Kaoza, and Nibshan, and the cities of Salt, and En Gedi, 7 cities. Oh, it's got 7 instead of 6. And their villages. And the last verse here reminds us that the Jebusites are still there.